Hello, welcome to the video. The Tyrannosaurus seen in Jurassic Park is one of the most iconic fictional dinosaurs of all time. I don't think anyone found the shot of it breaking out of its paddock in the first Jurassic Park movie forgettable after leaving the theatres in 1993. Every single Jurassic movie since the first film features Tyrannosaurus, whether it be the Buck Doe couple from The Lost World, Ember in the latest installment, aka Rebirth, or Rexy/Roberta, who appeared in the original Jurassic Park. Or perhaps you're a little more cultured and prefer the T-Rex individuals from the novels by Michael Crichton. This video is part of a 6-part series analysing the Tyrannosaurus individuals' behaviour throughout the Jurassic Park/World franchise. Part 1 will be focusing on the original trilogy of movies, Part 2 will be about the 4 latest film installments, Part 3 will talk about Camp Cretaceous, Part 4 will be about Chaos Theory, Part 5 will loop it back around to the novels by Michael Crichton, and an additional entry will be made for the Indominus Rex and Distortus Rex, given both have Tyrannosaurus DNA. I wanted to do the movies first, mainly because it's been a while since I've watched the first films, and those were the ones that were a big part of my childhood. And I thought it would be good to first establish the portrayals in the movies before looping back around to an in-depth analysis of the original source material. It's worth noting that, despite him passing away long before Camp Cretaceous was ever created, the credits still list it as being based on Crichton's novels. The same is the case for Chaos Theory. The main point of analysing the behaviour is to see how consistent the behaviour is and how much it deviates between each movie. I recall watching YouTube videos throughout the years that said that the original trilogy had the dinosaurs act more like real animals, while the World trilogy humanised them more, all for the animalistic approach to return in Rebirth. This series of videos will put that to the test and see how true that statement really is, at least for the Tyrannosaurus specimens in these movies. There's also, as mentioned, the spin-off shows that are worth going through also to see how they portray Tyrannosaurus, and we can also see if there could be any potential scientific influence on the Jurassic franchise. Anyway, given this is part 1, we'll be going through Jurassic Park, The Lost World Jurassic Park, and Jurassic Park 3. If you enjoy this series, please let me know, and perhaps I can cover other Jurassic franchise dinosaurs, such as the Velociraptors or the Spinosaurus. But for now, let's continue with this video before we get too far ahead of ourselves.
Where's the goat?
Jurassic Park was released in 1993 and is seen by some as a sort of end product of the dinosaur renaissance, given its portrayal of dinosaurs is a lot different to previous depictions by films and shows. The Tyrannosaurus in this movie is shown in 4 key scenes. The first is its breakout scene, the next is the car chase, the Gallimimus flock, and the final one is the scene at the film's climax where it is shown fighting the raptors. The breakout scene is a very interesting and important piece of this film as far as its depiction of Tyrannosaurus is concerned. The dinosaur doesn't break out immediately, but is instead shown to be somewhat intelligent. There's a shot where one of its arms is on the electric fence, shortly before we see the shot of it swallowing a goat put in its paddock earlier in the film. In the shot where it stares towards Lex and Tim's tour vehicle, it appears interested in the tour vehicle, possibly because of the goat leg that landed on it, and realises the electric fences are no longer electrified. From there, the iconic shot of it roaring as it exits its paddock is shown, where it slowly lumbers out. I think it's worth noting that it doesn't immediately go on the attack. It doesn't bolt after Gennaro and destroy the toilet he's in. It doesn't immediately destroy the tour vehicles. Instead, it's more interested in exploring an environment it's only now able to walk around in. In the first shot we see from inside Grant and Malcolm's tour vehicle after the dinosaur breaks out, we see it wander off in the general direction of where Gennaro went. But in the next shot from Grant and Malcolm's vehicle, we see that it is inspecting their vehicle and only heads towards Lex and Tim's car once Lex starts waving around a torch, unintentionally attracting the Tyrannosaurus towards her and Tim. It is also further interested upon hearing Tim close the door left open by Gennaro and slowly inspects their tour vehicle. We see it nudge the car and both kids start screaming just before it manages to break the sunroof and flip the car upside down. We see that the Tyrannosaurus has an attraction to light as it's interested in Grant's flare, all for it to then be distracted by Malcolm's and chases after him before crashing through the public toilet Gennaro was in and eating him. The flare, when waved around by Malcolm, seems to be something that excited the Tyrannosaurus, given it starts to become more active after chasing him. The Tyrannosaurus is then shown getting back to terrorizing the children and Grant, later pushing the tall vehicle into its paddock. One thing that's worth pointing out about this scene is how Lex is forced to be silent by Grant. The T-Rex does force them to move by spinning the car around, as if it's trying to see if they're there, like it's almost aware of this film's universe's idea that Tyrannosaurus can't see anything that stands still. However, both Grant and Lex remain still after having to move because of the car, and the T-Rex either doesn't notice them or doesn't care and turns its attention back to the car. Another point of interest with this scene is that after Malcolm throws the flare away, the Tyrannosaurus still chases after him and probably would have killed Malcolm if he wasn't hidden by the wreckage of the public toilet covering him. And because Malcolm ended up being hidden under the remains of the building, the Tyrannosaurus eats Gennaro instead. A lot of people tend to say that Tyrannosaurus and other large theropods wouldn't go after humans because we wouldn't be worth the calories consumed versus calories expended. However, I think it at least makes some partial sense for the Tyrannosaurus to chase Malcolm in this scene. You see, while the raptors get an entire cow to feast on, we see the Tyrannosaurus only gets a goat. The goat is a lot smaller than a human in terms of stature, meaning humans would appear probably more appealing than a goat to a Tyrannosaurus in terms of food. InGen has probably fed this Tyrannosaurus only on goats so that way they can have multiple feedings per day and bring the dinosaur into view of visitors to the park more often. As a result, this Tyrannosaurus has at least been partially conditioned to eating things a lot smaller than itself. From there, this also explains the next scene we get of Tyrannosaurus. The next scene is the car chase, where the Tyrannosaurus chases after Malcolm, Sattler, and Muldoon. The Tyrannosaurus, because it's been fed very small animals relative to its size, is basically nature's form of a low power mode. It's desperate to get any calories in. And from there, it's safe to assume that the Tyrannosaurus is probably wanting to go on its own kill spree, trying to get as much food as possible. We see during the Gallimimus scene it ambushes the Gallimimus flock and manages to kill one, and Grant, Lex, and Tim make the decision to move away from the predator before it decides to perhaps try going after one of them. One scene I want to bring up also is that we hear the Tyrannosaurus in the electric fence scene but don't see it, and it's enough to terrify Grant and the kids into making the climb up the fence. The Tyrannosaurus to a certain extent might have noticed them and is at least moving in their general direction, hence why it also ends up at the visitor center. Again, we see the Tyrannosaurus is still hungry, given that when it grabs the first raptor in the visitor center, it looks like it's about to eat it but gets distracted by the second raptor jumping onto it and proceeds to kill it. In conclusion for Jurassic Park, I think we can summarise it in that the Tyrannosaurus in this film is probably underfed, most likely so it will appear more often for guests to look at it. The only inconsistency with this logic is that it doesn't immediately show up to eat the goat in the paddock, but this could be because of the low power mode sentence I said earlier, given the lack of food leads to a lack of energy. This helps as an in-universe way of explaining why we see the Tyrannosaurus in this film hunt things smaller than itself. I think it's also worth stating that quite often modern predators don't hunt large prey. Bears, big cats, crocodiles, sharks often hunt things smaller than themselves and rarely go after the largest animals in their ecosystem. While you might hear stories of lions and tigers taking on elephants, those stories are not as common as you might think. So, while humans are a bit too small for a Tyrannosaurus to want to hunt us regularly, it's not as unrealistic for Jurassic Park's Tyrannosaurus to try and hunt for humans in the movie as you might think. I'd dub this a more animalistic sort of depiction of Tyrannosaurus. It has some movie monster elements, but it's not a full-blown movie monster. We see it start off curious about the cars as it gets to explore what's outside its paddock, and only really becomes a killer because of it being underfed and then realizing humans are edible. It's not like some other dinosaur movies where they are purely mindless killers.
Robert Burke said that the T-Rex was a rogue who would abandon its young at the earliest opportunity. I know I can prove otherwise.
The Lost World Jurassic Park, released in 1997, is the first and so far the only film in the franchise to feature two Tyrannosaurus individuals. It's also the only Jurassic film to feature an infant Tyrannosaurus. This film is helpful in expanding upon Tyrannosaurus parental behaviour in the Jurassic Park universe. There are several key scenes involving the adults, referred to as Buck and Doe, those being their retrieval of their infant, the aftermath of the retrieval, their attack on the camp, Buck's rampage through San Diego, and the final shot of the film. This is alongside the scenes featuring the infant Tyrannosaurus referred to as Junior. Junior is the first of this Tyrannosaur family we see on screen, who is believed to only be a few weeks old and is shown eating food provided to him by his parents. We can see that the parents do kill larger prey than Rexy did in the previous film, given when we first see the Rex nest, there's a dead Parasaurolophus in the background. After being trapped by Roland Tembo and Ajay Sidhu, we see Junior's reaction is to cry out for his parents. And once he is taken to the RV campsite, we see Buck and Doe manage to find Junior and retrieve him from the human characters of the film. We see that at first, they walk in announcing they're angered by sending one of the cars tumbling over the cliff and start causing the camper to rock side to side, but quickly calm down once they hear some groaning from Junior. After they get Junior back, they decide to destroy the RV and kill Eddie Carr, who was attempting to save everyone who was in the RV. From there, we see them investigating the campsite set up by the InGen team, before later chasing the humans and killing the Robert Backer stand-in. In the film, it's said that this is because, due to Roland and Ajay invading the Rex nest and taking Junior, Buck and Doe have expanded their range and from there perceive humans as a threat. Given this film takes place on Isla Sorna, which means that the raptors, pteranodons, other Tyrannosaurus specimens, and the Spinosaurus are all on the same island as Buck and Doe, it's easy to see why they would try to chase humans out of their now expanded territory. They already have 4 potential threats to deal with and don't need another. Roland manages to sedate Buck, who is immediately transported to San Diego, and this brings us to the most interesting part of this entire video. How would a mega predator the size of Tyrannosaurus act upon being dropped into a city? Well, we first see Buck get a drink from a nearby swimming pool in a family's backyard, eating their dog, and then go on a rampage through San Diego where he destroys a bus, kills several people, and is then lured back to the SS Venture, the ship that was used to transport him to San Diego. Looking at it from a realistic perspective, Buck would probably have stuck around near the SS Venture. The reason for this is because going from a natural jungle to a concrete one would probably be something too alien for Buck. One possibility I could imagine is Buck perhaps suffering or dying from stress due to now being in San Diego given the context. One minute Buck is minding his business, scaring humans out of his territory, then blacks out from the sedative he gets hit with by Roland, and then he wakes up dehydrated and hungry in a completely alien world. If any of you have ever had a new pet that's grown up in one home before being transported to yours, you'd know what I mean. My family once got a cat that stuck to hanging around one specific part of the house until it got more used to investigating other areas of our home. Granted, this was a small mammalian predator and not one of the largest carnivores to ever walk on this planet, but that doesn't mean the same wouldn't ring true for Buck. Buck is shown in the San Diego sequence to still be protective of Junior, given we see him go after Malcolm and Harding upon seeing they have Junior in their possession, which is what leads him back to the SS Venture. This, alongside what we saw in Isla Sorna, shows that Buck and Doe are very protective of Junior to an extreme degree. I don't know if this degree of protectiveness exists in any animals related to dinosaurs, or just straight up dinosaurs in the case of birds, but for me it feels more human-like than anything else. One of the interesting parts about this protective behaviour is the before-mentioned Robert Backer stand-in, Robert Burke. This character was stated previously in the film to believe that T-Rex was an animal that abandoned its young at the earliest opportunity it could get. However, we see this disproven in the film's universe as Buck and Doe are very protective of Junior to an extreme degree. The final scene we have for the Tyrannosaurus family is that of them back together on Isla Sorna, where we see them hanging together in a field with several potential prey species. They aren't mindless killers, and it paints a pretty good picture for the ending scene of the film. It shows the dinosaurs doing more than just being mindless killing machines, and is something that should be shown more often in paleo media. I don't really have much else to add for this scene besides just saying that. Overall, it's a pretty decent scene. Overall, I think for The Lost World, it gives more of a humanized / animalistic / movie monster portrayal for T-Rex. We have a bit of humanization, bit of animalization, I guess you could say, at the parental care aspects, where both parents are very determined to get their child back, and then going on a campaign to remove humans from their range. And then we have the movie monster portrayal with Buck's rampage through San Diego. I also want to note that if a Tyrannosaurus was rampaging through an American city or town, it probably wouldn't last long. While handguns like 9mm pistols probably wouldn't be enough to stop it, various heavy rifle calibers and other weapons would either put the animal down or at least get to stop its rampage and run away. Even if you just did a mag dump of something like an AK-47 rifle, if it doesn't kill the dinosaur, it would at least irritate it enough to get it to run away rather than continue its rampage. Animals don't like to feel pain, and if you aim for vulnerable parts like the soft tissue in the mouth, ears, or eyes, the T-Rex won't hang around for long. Overall, this film gives more of a mixture of movie monster and animal and human, rather than strictly belonging to one or the other.
Nobody move a muscle.
Jurassic Park 3 released in 2001 and was the first film in the series to feature another large theropod instead of Tyrannosaurus, this time being Spinosaurus, which at the time was thought to be just a larger version of Baryonyx with a sail. The Tyrannosaurus in this film only appears in one scene, that being the infamous Tyrannosaurus vs Spinosaurus fight scene that has had a lasting impact on the paleontology community. Some treat it like a serious topic, others a meme, others just don't care at all. Please select your class of paleontology enthusiast. There's not really too much to say about the behaviour of this Tyrannosaurus. It's actually just a senseless movie monster, or perhaps it can't focus on anything for more than 10 seconds. We see it first appear when it's eating a dinosaur that appears to have been dead a while, then abandons said larger food source to chase after the smaller humans, and then dies in a fight with the Spinosaurus. Besides the fact this Tyrannosaurus put up a decent fight against the Spinosaurus, and only really failed because it left itself open to the Spinosaurus grabbing its neck and breaking it, not much can be said for this fight scene. I remember it was awesome to watch this fight scene as a child, but looking at it through the lens of analysing the Tyrannosaurus's behaviour doesn't leave much praise to sing for this movie. The T-Rex was not really meant to be a focus for Jurassic Park 3 anyway, given that the main villain is the Spinosaurus because of the creators of JP3 wanting something bigger and badder than Tyrannosaurus. And when you are living in the late 90s to early 2000s of paleontology, the main choice was more than likely going to be Spinosaurus. The only thing I think can be attributed in terms of anything worthwhile to Tyrannosaurus behaviour in this film series is that it shows the Tyrannosaurus scavenging in Jurassic Park 3. The animal looks to have been dead a while, and we can hear flies buzzing around the carcass. Jack Horner was also a consultant on this movie and was peddling his scavenger theory for Tyrannosaurus at the time. Heck, the same year JP3 released was also the same year Valley of the T-Rex, a film where Horner tries to argue in favour of the scavenger hypothesis, also released. I'm not going to talk too much about the dedicated scavenger theory from Horner, but to summarise, he's half right, half wrong. Tyrannosaurus probably did scavenge on occasion, but not all the time, like modern predators such as big cats or bears. With that in mind, it is realistic to have this Tyrannosaurus scavenging, given we've had 2 previous films of them killing things, but it quickly takes a turn for the worst with the Spinosaurus fight. In defense of this fight, you could probably interpret it as territorial behaviour, given both theropods were chasing after the humans, but given the Tyrannosaurus's behaviour of abandoning a plentiful food source, it's more movie monster than animal. In conclusion, I think this can be put down as mainly a Hollywood movie monster. There's some realism with the scavenging and fighting with the Spinosaurus over a potential food source, but given the overall context of this scene, it leans more towards movie monster. Heck, the Spinosaurus is pure movie monster. Did you expect the Tyrannosaurus in this movie to be any different? Overall, these movies, when it comes to Tyrannosaurus, seem to have a trend of going from animalistic in the first film all the way to straight up movie monster behaviour in the third film. The Lost World is probably my favourite depiction, given we saw stuff about its parental care. To say that the first Jurassic Park films had the dinosaurs focused as actual animals, based on the Tyrannosaurus at least, doesn't really hold up. And as a side note, I think it's safe to say the Velociraptors are just straight up movie monsters even in the first movie. They're just mindless killers. I hope to at some point in the future cover the Jurassic Park universe more in the future outside of this series, but for now it looks more like this. Jurassic Park had the T-Rex as an actual animal, The Lost World was a 50-50 mix, and Jurassic Park 3 is straight up movie monster. A trend of evolving from animal to movie monster throughout the original trilogy. Anyway, hopefully you enjoy this video, and will like, share and subscribe as a result, and I'll see you next time I upload.